Hey everyone, Jason here. So in this video, I want to go through a couple of things. First, this video is going to be about getting started with macros in Excel. And then I'm also going to cover something that comes along with my book. If you purchase the book Business Operations Unlocked, what you get is a kind of example spreadsheet file of a supplier audit tool. So in this spreadsheet, you've got a list of suppliers with various metrics. And then it has some macros inside of it where if you click a few buttons, it will analyze your suppliers and then highlight a couple of things like when was the last audit, or how many suppliers do you have in specific categories. So like those might be important things to track over time. What I want to do in this video is kind of a hands-on walkthrough of how I generated the file. I want to walk through AI prompts and how I used AI to help me write the macros, and really kind of talk about the basics of it and how you could do even more with it. So with that, let's get into it. Okay, so first what I want to do is just show the supplier audit tool and talk about it a little bit. First, this is the file that you get after you purchase the book Business Operations Unlocked. It comes as part of it. You have to go to my website, jasonunlocked.com, enter in some information, and you actually purchase it for free. It's just easier for me to facilitate it that way with the way that my my e-commerce store is set up. But it's totally free. All you got to do is put in your information, you purchase it for free, and then it goes straight to your email. This is supposed to be an example of what an actual supplier management tool might look like in your company. Obviously, this isn't like some fancy full-blown application. This is kind of a little bit more bare bones. But the reason I love things like this is because it's always great to have a backup. Like even if you've got really expensive enterprise software solutions that integrate with your actual orders and deliveries, and you're pulling in those metrics, like that's great. But what I've always found is build a backup and double check, because often those systems that you think are perfect are not perfect at all, and there can be pretty big discrepancies in it. So I always advocate to build out your own simple tools like this, at least just as a check. And what you might find actually is that this becomes more useful. You can actually save a lot of money, because if you can build out a solution like this, you don't have to pay that expensive enterprise software fees. Now, where do you get this data? At a minimum, you could be manually entering it. That's a bit that kind of adds a lot of work, because if you're in a bigger company, you probably have thousands or tens of thousands of suppliers. I mean, if you've got a lot of suppliers, you probably have a software solution already that helps you manage that. And if you do, hopefully you have a way that you can export that data out of that system, whatever you can get out of it, whether it be names or ideally like something you see here, names, locations, how do you have them categorized in your system? What parts do they supply? Ideally, you're pulling out things like what's the purchase price, and some of these other things like when were they entered, when were they last audited. It might be a mix of both, export and manually inputting. Like maybe you can just get the names or some of the information, and then you go back in and manually add in when was the last time they were audited, something like that. Or maybe you're pulling quality defects out of another system, like maybe your quality team can pull that information by part number, and then you can put that in here. And that's actually what I talk a lot about in the book, Business Operations Unlocked, is how do you get access to that data? How can you combine it? And how can you automate that to make it really easy on your team, so that you can just kind of click buttons and it's already there for you at the beginning of the day. That's really what I go into in the book. But let's just assume you can get to this point. You've got some data, okay, on suppliers. And what this file does, I'll just go through the functions, and then what I'm going to do is probably recreate it step by step so you can see exactly what I did with it.